How are you?
Good. And you're Bo Bennett?
I am.
All right, cool. And what brought you here?
I guess our mutual friend, um,
Mhm.
Budali's.
Okay, awesome. And we're here to talk about name the.
I, yeah. I honestly, I just thought you wanted to talk about veganism or whatever. I'm happy to talk.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, I mean, I've seen the things you've written about name the trade. Um, and I kind of well, I've seen two things. I've seen the things you've written about dualism versus monism, and I've seen the things you've written about name the trade. And I was wondering if I can get if we can hash that.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to talk.
Okay, so just I don't think the dualism versus monism thing will take too long. So dualism doesn't entail one's belief in saying that a mind can exist independently of the body. A dualist can be a dualist and still believe that the mind is dependent on the body. There's nothing in any definition in any, whether it's the IEP, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, that entails that view, whether it's substance dualism or property dualism. Dualism is just the view that the mind and body are of different kind of things. They're made of different kind of things. You can be a substance dualist. They're different substances, or you can be a property dualist to say that there is one type of physical. There's physical one type of physical thing. There's a physical thing, and then there's two different properties of the physical thing, which is one type of property of physical things are minds, and the other type of physical things are bodies. That would be the view of property dualism. But notice how neither of those views have any entailments of any requirements on the body to exist in order for the mind to exist. You can have a view both ways and actually be a dualist.
Okay,
And
I guess we have to back up for a minute here. And did I say something about or write something about dualism that
yeah,
was
so you wrote that dualism entails that that one has to have the mind has to be can't be dependent on the body, that the mind can exist independently. Sorry, the mind can exist independently of the body. That if you're a dualist, that's an entailment on your belief as a dualist.
the
If
mind
yeah,
could exist independently of the body?
yeah, like a ghost or God or angels.
Right.
um they have minds, but they don't have physical bodies, so they have minds that exist independently of physical bodies.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I guess you're saying there's an understanding of dualism where that's not the case.
yeah, there are plenty of understandings of dualism where that's not the case. Absolutely. I mean, no one. There's nothing about the definition of dualism that entails the view. I can tell you I'm a dualist right now, and tell you that I don't believe in angels. I don't believe in gods or whatnot. I just believe that the minds and bodies are made up of different kinds of things. And it could still be the case that the kind of thing that the mind is made up of is independent is dependent on the kind of thing that the body is made up of. But there's still different kinds of things, whether it's a different substance or whether that's a different property.
If you're talking about a different substance, aren't we getting into like Platonic substances
Not necessarily.
or
It doesn't.
theism?
No, not necessarily. It just means a different type. It's the first of all, it's not necessarily a different type of substance. That's because when it doesn't necessarily dualism doesn't necessarily mean substance dualism. There's another view of dualism called property dualism, where there's just there's just there's physical substances, and then of those physical substances, the substances have different properties. One of those properties is the mind. It's a property of the substance, and then there's another substance. There's
Okay.
this other property which is the body. But it regardless, all that is core to the central thesis of dualism is that minds and bodies are made up of different kinds of things.
Okay, I guess what's important to the conversation, or at least if I remember where I mentioned this, is that the mind cannot exist without the brain or the body.
Well, that's tangential to what you said, because again, that's fine. We can go into that. We can get into that as well. But what you said, you said, you didn't just say that. You made a claim, which is that dualism entails that the one belief that the mind can exist independently of the body. It's just a quick correction. That's all it is. It's like dualism doesn't entail that. There's nothing about dualism that requires one to take that view. It's not even core to this, what we're about to talk about. It's just a quick correction. That's all.
Okay, I'm sorry. I should have been prepared to speak about dualism because
Here's your quote. Here's your quote. If one is a dualist, they believe that the mind can exist independent of the physical brain. Quote, and parentheses, biological or artificial, as in some advanced. So that's just, your quote is just a false statement. There's nothing about dualism that entails that.
Okay. Well, I'll look into that. And if
All right,
it's
cool.
wrong, I'll correct
The
it.
other, awesome. Yeah, I look forward to looking into that and posting the retraction for that and the correction. Okay, awesome. Moving on to name the trait. Based on what you've written about name the trait, I think you have a misguided view of what name the trait is. So we can go through what name the trait is, because I'm not convinced that based on what you've written that you have a clear understanding of what it is. So name the trait is a two-part kind of thing. So the first part, it starts off with something called a dialogue tree. In a certain circumstance, a deduction tree can be employed. So let's just start off with the dialogue tree, because that's how the conversation starts. If you want, we can. Are you seeing text in general chat?
Yes.
Okay, so I will post the dialogue flow tree for you. If I can get it condensed down. Okay, here we go. Okay, you can download this PDF. That's the dialogue flow tree. And just let me know when you have that up on your screen.
Okay. Yes, I have seen this before.
Okay. Well, you've seen the dialogue flow tree or the deductive tree, or both, because there's two of them. All right. Regardless, we'll go through both.
I've seen this before. Whatever you send me. If this is
all right. Cool. Yeah. So the first, it starts with, on your current moral view, if all traits of a given human who has moral value are switched to match those true of a given non-human animal who does not have moral value, is there any point in the trait equalization process where moral value is lost? Now, importantly, if someone says no to this question, we don't deploy the deductive tree. I'll just get the deductive tree up for you, because I think you've seen the deductive tree. So here's the deductive tree. You can download that if you'd like. Actually, you should download that. Let me know when you have that up on your...
I have that as well.
Yeah. Okay, so you've seen both of these, correct? Or have you just seen one and not the other?
I'm not as familiar with this deduction tree as I am with the first one.
Okay. One of the things I remember you saying is that you can just reject P2, which is you affirm in the deduction tree. Your view affirms a given human is trait equalizable to a given non-human animal while retaining more value.
Okay.
So
if it doesn't, if your view does not affirm that,
then you wouldn't deploy you wouldn't deploy the argument as mentioned in the dialogue flow tree.
Right, but you could still reject it.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be rejecting it because it wouldn't be employed in the first. It wouldn't be given to you. The argument was never made to give that to someone.
You could reject the premise too.
Yes, but you wouldn't be again. But yeah, that. So I don't think you're. Just try to follow for a second. So no one who has that view would be given this argument. So remember, we're starting with the dialogue flow tree, not the deductive flow tree. Remember what the first question was. The first question was, on your current moral view, if all traits true of a given human, parentheses, who has moral value, are switched to match those of a given non-human animal who doesn't have moral value, is there any point in the trait equalization process where a moral value is lost? Now, if they say no, which is a rejection of P2, look at the dialogue flow tree. Does at any point do you see employ the deductive flow tree? Employ the deduction? No. At no point in name the trait do we give a person who says no to this the deductive argument. So no one, if name the trait is employed correctly, no one who rejects P2 will ever even see that deduction. There wouldn't be a deduction to reject.
Okay, I'm not sure where you're going with this. I mean, what are we talking about rejecting the deduction as opposed to just the argument does not apply to you?
Oh, sorry. I misspoke. Yeah. Yes. So sorry. So no gives the deduction. I'm sorry. Yeah. Only people who say yes and therefore accept premise 2 would the argument be delivered. I had my wires crossed. I'm sorry. So no. So if they say no, the syllogism is deployed because they. Yeah, because if they say no, the syllogism is deployed because they accept the second premise, which entails the contradiction, which is what the argument is. So the point here is what I'm trying to show you is that when you say you could reject P2, you're not looking at name the trait in its full context, which is the dialogue flow tree and the deductive flow tree. When someone says yes, that's a rejection of P2. When someone says no, that's an acceptance of P2. At that point,
reject P2.
Of course you can reject P2, but you wouldn't see the argument, though. It wouldn't even, again, the dialogue wouldn't proceed to the argument to be even rejected in the first place. There would be nothing to reject because you're not looking at how name the trait is deployed. Remember, I said in the beginning, we start from the dialogue flow tree, not the deductive tree.
But what if, let's say, some of the people who use name the trait, who aren't name the trait masters and haven't fully understand how to deploy this.
Okay, so that's 10. That's
with this second argument where they start with the deduction.
Yep. Then I would employ them to be name the trait masters, and we can go to name the trait. All right, that's just tangential. All right, so now that's why we're here. We're here to talk about how to be lovely name the trait masters and correctly understand it, such that we wouldn't say things like you can reject P2, because if someone is running the name the trait dialogue, someone who rejects P2 would never see that deduction to even reject. So if you understood that, you wouldn't have even written that criticism.
Well, no, because
well, then he would have written a vacuous criticism. I mean, you wouldn't have written a trivially true criticism, which is fine if you're into writing trivially true criticism.
You still there?
I'm still here. Yeah. So I was saying that if you reject that, then you're basically saying you would just write a trivially true criticism. Because look, in the dialogue flow tree, when someone rejects P2, the dialogue tree doesn't continue with deploy the syllogism. The dialogue tree continues with, do you know which traits define the point? Yes or no. And then it continues from there on. Only with no do we get the syllogism for the contradiction. Do we get the deductive argument for the contradiction? So it's only deployed. I can't stress this enough. We ask a question.
Well,
only in the case where the answer is no do we deploy the argument.
Right, I get where you're going, but
so hold on. One second, Bo.
People are using it correctly.
Okay, Bo. That's why we're here. We're here to talk about how to use it correctly.
All right, Avi, you're being a little bit condescending at the moment, and I thought this wasn't going to be a Isaac style.
Bo. Look, Bo, listen, Bo. You wrote a book on this guy's argument. I don't even know why I'm here, to be honest with you, Bo. You wrote a book on this guy's argument. I think when someone does that, you owe it to him to have a conversation with him when someone writes a book on that. I don't even know why I'm the one doing this, but I'll do it because I'm his friend. I shouldn't be the one doing this. You should have the integrity to have the conversation with him, to be honest with you. That's what's there. I'm just leveling with you here.
Yeah. This is not what I signed up for.
All right. Well, look.
I thank you for your
do you have-
time, and
do you
I'm
have
sorry
a-
for the
do you have a-
misunderstanding.
Do you have a response, Bo? Okay, cool.